Here we are. All right. So, welcome to the book of the quarter. It used to be book of the month. Now it's book of the quarter. So, we're going to have to make sure we're writing BOTQ. I keep on writing BOTM still, but it's fine. It's new, so we're getting used to it. So, this is book of the quarter. We have read 16 books now, which is pretty awesome. And the one that we read, as we know, is Unreasonable Hospitality with Will Guidara. And so we put a little quote here that kind of like emphasizes what it's all about. Like, often the perfect moment to give somebody more responsibility is before they're ready. And definitely resonated with me when I was reading this book, and hope that it resonated with others. And if it didn't, I'm interested to know why or why not it didn't resonate. But first, we are going to get a little bit of a refresh of what this book was about, because perhaps some of you read it a little bit earlier in the quarter, maybe the middle, or more recently. So I just want to make sure that we're all kind of like aligned on that and we know what's up. So here's just a quick little video, but I'm not sharing my sound. So one moment, please. Share sound. All right.
You can systemize improvisational hospitality through simple pattern recognition. Anyone that serves people, I would say, of the people listening to this, just statistically speaking, at least 80% of them are serving people in some way, shape, or form.
Oh yeah, for sure.
If you look closely enough at your relationships, at your business, and choose to be intentional in pursuit of those relationships, you're going to find simple patterns. And if you seize on them, you can do extraordinary things. Like in the restaurant, people get engaged a lot. And at any restaurant, if you get engaged in the restaurant, they pour you a glass of free champagne, right? That's just kind of the status quo. But I always thought, okay, if everyone else is doing that, we need to do more. It's not special anymore. The moment someone gets used to a gift, it's no longer a gift, it's an expectation.
And so with that, our first, oh wait, no.
You can systemize improvisation.
Technical difficulties. There we go. Oh, no, it went back. No, this is why I don't share my screen. All right. So with that segue, this is a question for everyone and anyone. Have you ever experienced unreasonable hospitality? In the book, Will Guidara mentions the Dreamweaver's role, including like a story with a $2 hot dog that changed everything. So do you have a story that kind of comes to your mind of your own experiences with this? And if so, feel free to share it. Or have you experienced the opposite, where it's like hostile hospitality?
Does it need to be in the context of like CDIO, or it
Nope.
needs to be like, or are we the like ones providing unreasonable hospitality or like receiving it in the example?
Receiving it. So you've experienced it. It doesn't have to be at CDIO. It's just like some really great service, some unreasonable hospitality. An example that comes to my mind was when I went to this random like pub with some of my like college friends, and I had like some like chicken and some fries and stuff, and I had accidentally knocked my fork off the table with my elbow. Before I could even pick it up, the waitress had already appeared magically with a fork and was like, "Here you go." And then I was like, "Whoa, what the?" Like, it just like blew my mind, just like that kind of service. And so that's kind of like the experience, the stories, anything like that that kind of comes to your mind.
I have one.
Oh yeah.
So as most of you know, I went to Toronto a weekend ago or 2 weekends ago, and me and my friends went to a like a farmer's market, and we were just kind of testing things around like each of the little shops. But one of them that stood out the most, and it's actually the one where we spent the most money. The owner of this, they do like spicy mustards. He basically gave each and every one of us like a taste of each one of it, like the mustards, and there was probably like 15. So we stayed there for like so long, just chatting with him and like doing all this stuff. And yeah, we all ended up buying like average 6 of the mustards, like each, like all 5 of us. So it just goes to show that handing something out for free and also like kind of like telling your story in like a friendly way can lead to all of us enjoying really good mustard. So
I like mustard, so that's, and you sold it to me. I'm like, now I want to go get that mustard. Like, I don't even know what, I don't even like spice, but I like mustard. So
I have one. This was in my college canteen, so you have to like buy your food during lunch break, but then everyone has a lunch break at the same time. So you have to like buy a token first, like telling them what you want to buy, and then give it to the canteen lady, and then she'll give you whatever you're eating. But basically, there was this one dish, like the dosa, and I didn't have it without this side dish that came with it. But some days they would run out of it. So I would always go walk up to them and ask, like, do you have this side dish today? And if they said no, I would just walk out and not eat anything. So the canteen lady, every time she saw me enter and just like line up, one day she saved the side dish for me. And she's like, I saved this just for you because I know you don't eat it without it. So like I didn't have to like walk up to her, ask her, and then like line up. So that was really nice. Like that she just like remembered that I wouldn't eat it.
that is so wholesome. I love that. That's a really great example. All of these are really great examples of unreasonable hospitality.
I have an example
You have one as well?
that,
Yes.
yeah, and it's actually like the example that I have actually is somewhat in the book too. So it was really put a smile on my face when I read that part. So my wife and I went to the restaurant Auberge de Pommier in Toronto, and we were really admiring the tableware. So we lifted up one of the plates to see like what the make was, and then one of the servers, she comes over and says, "Oh, I noticed that you look like admiring the plates. I can get you the manager's business card so she can let you know where we got them from." So that was like super nice. And then I think in the book of 11 Madison Park has like index cards of the supplier for everything that they have, so that's even easier to give out for people who are buying stuff. So that was kind of fun to read that part, because like I always like every time we talk about that restaurant, we don't talk about, well, we do talk about the food. We always mention that experience, and it's like kind of ingrained in our memory of that experience of somebody just noticing that we like the plates and like going out of their way to get the business card of the manager. So it was really, really cool.
That's awesome. I love it. It's like the stories that make you feel like warm and fuzzy inside.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have, oh, sorry, Carla?
Yeah, I have one. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So in college, I can remember doing a case study on LL Bean. And before that, I hadn't really heard of the brand. They weren't super well known in Canada, but apparently they had like a really good reputation for customer service. So the case study we did was this engaged couple. They were getting married on the weekend, and as a surprise, the soon-to-be husband had purchased like a one-person kayak instead of a two or canoe, whatever it was. He messed up, called customer service, was like, "Oh my gosh, we're leaving on our honeymoon like in 2 days. What do I do?" And somebody in like the head office just stood up and said, like, "Is anyone going to Seattle this weekend?" And someone in the office raised their hand, and everybody helped him strap this kayak or canoe on his car, and he drove it from like Oregon to Seattle that weekend, and like obviously was like the hero of the party, drove in, and I'm sure everybody was talking about LL Bean at this reception. But fast forward like a couple of years, I get an LL Bean catalog like thrown at me from my grandmother-in-law, and I ordered a jacket, and like the fabric ripped 2 years later. And so I was like, "Oh, I'm going to test this out." And I emailed them, and they're like, "Yeah, no problem. We don't have that model anymore, but we'll send you this year's version." And like, couldn't have been better. So they were tens every time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That story made me cry.
Does anybody else have any stories they want to share before we move over to the main part of our discussion today? No. All right. All good. All right. So we are not going to do a breakout. We are going to do a all of us talking together kind of discussion. Because sometimes it feels like when we're in like the breakouts, we don't really get to hear everybody's voice. We don't get to hear from everybody. We hear from like the person who's kind of like champion each of the teams. So we're going to try a different approach today, and we're all going to kind of sit back, relax, and talk about the book. So you see, we got a couple of these points here, and feel free to reference your book report as well, if you want to pull out some points from there. But very interested in like hearing from everybody, no particular order, but with the first question, like what kind of insights did you gain from reading this book?
I could see that there were a lot of parallels, as I had suspected, between the hospitality industry and what we are trying to do here. So having worked in the hospitality business myself, it's interesting because that video that you shared with us, Will, was talking about the patterns of engagement with people, and there are patterns in the way that you deal with people and what you do on a daily basis when you're working in the hospitality business. And I've worked as a chef, as a bartender, as a waiter, like in all sorts of different events, all kinds of different areas of the hospitality business. And I think one of the things that I'm very interested in systems and that, as you know, and I think that has come from that observation that he made about the patterns in which we work. When I was a waiter, especially, there were certain patterns that you followed and you didn't even think about them anymore. It was muscle memory when serving a customer. So there was a certain sequence that you always, no matter what restaurant I worked in no matter what country I was in, the patterns were always generally the same. And you knew that if you followed that pattern, you'd get from point A to point B safely and everything would be fine. And then mixing in a quote of his, which was, people will forget what you do, they'll forget what you said, but they'll never forget about how you made them feel. It's kind of like the cherry on the cake there for me, because we can operate systematically and efficiently, and we can do our best to provide the best output possible. But there is also that element of how we make people feel when we work with them. And that is the thing that people, they will remember the results and they are thinking about ROI. I was talking to Ileana about this the other day. Our most valuable, in some respects, our most valuable asset really is the results that we get for our clients. But also, to Ileana's point she made the other day, a lot of it is to do with the way that we as a team make people feel when we work with them.
Oh, yes, Jackie.
Yes, on my end, and aligned with that, definitely like the minute details that they mentioned, how at the end, these are little things that not the majority of the people would notice, but it would get noticed at the end. I think it is related to the little things we do, like when we send like the link because we see our client is struggling to get into the call, or we ask and offer to get on a call with them to support for any access in particular that they're struggling with. Things like that, when we show ourselves like flexible, like we understand the importance of what we're doing, those minute details, I agree that those go a long way. The other one I loved is the one on sloppiness, and how it tends to spread if no one's raising the bar. I think that's definitely something that sticks, because we are always raising our bar. Someone has an idea on how we can do things better and differently. If we didn't have that spirit of how we can improve the way we do things, we wouldn't be where we are now. So I think that was an amazing insight. Sloppiness or non-attention to detail has a way of spreading. So those are two of my favorite for sure.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome, Jackie. Along the points of Michael and Jackie, is there anything else that the rest of the team you've kind of learned or have to add on to their points?
I like the part. Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. You go first, V, and then I'll go.
Okay. I was just saying I like the part where he talked about like empowering his team because like the premise of the book, or at least like the intro, is just like, oh, like read about this book because we'll tell you how we made the restaurant like the best restaurant in the world. And that's great. But I feel like what I really found interesting is like how they managed to do it. Cause like at the end of the day, like it was like so many people working at this restaurant and like it's not just the concept, but like getting all his employees to like adopt that concept. So like the beer example, like, oh, you really like beer. So you're I think he said something like when you give people a taste of like the impact they can make at an organization initially, then they want to make more of that. So like I found that super fascinating because yes, the outcomes are very, very fascinating, like how they grew so quickly and so much. But like how he got his team to adopt like these concepts and all that was like really cool.
Mhm. And Christina, you had something you wanted to mention as well?
Yeah, so we've kind of moved away from Michael and Jackie's points, but I guess I just wanted to point out that in like the 3 lessons that I'll apply moving forward. So one of my big things was the importance of paying attention to detail, kind of like as Jackie mentioned, and also Michael. And yeah, I just felt like the book has a really good strong emphasis on that and like provides like a lot of like examples in the hospitality world that really, I mean, we've all named some, but I think I was just kind of saying that I feel like the little things that we do, though they would be different things, are just as important to our clients. And I think there's like a lot of examples where maybe like something's happened and we've been nervous to let the client know because we're like, oh no, we made this little mistake. But I've noticed it with some of my clients that they're just so understanding because you've grown such a great rapport with them that they're just kind of, they know that, it was a mistake, or they're a lot more, they trust you. So they're not fazed by it. Yeah. So I just wanted to mention that. And then coincidentally to Vasvi's point, one of my other points was about teamwork. So yeah, everyone is just on the same page, which is great to see.
Great, thanks for sharing. Does anybody else have anything they wanted to mention in regards to what you've kind of learned from the book, or shall we move over to a bit more specific aspects? All right, so moving on. So were there any specific aspects of this book that really resonated you or maybe didn't meet your expectations? I know for sure, like my expectations of the book, I was like, oh, it's like hospitality. Like I don't really know how it will relate to us as digital marketing, but went in with an open mind and read it. And so I would say that this actually like exceeded expectations for me and like really resonated in terms of like collaboration and teamwork. And um, there was a point that he made before as well, like sometimes like you try to fix something that like wasn't broken, and so you go back and like you implement the solutions, but it's all about like testing and stuff, like testing and trying something new and continually advancing it. And I thought that was really neat. And I think that like all the aspects of like promoting within company and like helping the team grow really resonates with like what we're all about as CDIO. So that was really nice. And just like the writing in general is like easy to understand, which was great. So I would actually put this up with like building your story brand. I don't know if that's like controversial because we know like that's, we hold that one in high regard, but those are some of the things that I kind of discovered and wanted to share. Yeah. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to share as well?
No, I just agree with you. Like just agree, not disagree.
Oh, I disagree.
I know, I realize how that sounded. I'd just agree with you on the point that it was easy to read because like I read it fairly late in the quarter. So I was a little worried that it was going to be a lot, but like it really reads like a conversation. Like it just feels like he's talking to you. It doesn't read like some of the more technical books that we read, and I really appreciated that because I feel like it was like going by pretty fast.
Mm-hmm. It's like a kind of like an autobiography, but also like you're learning something at the same time. And I thought that was like a really cool way because I felt like I knew him, and when when it was getting to the parts where like stuff wasn't going his way, I'm like, no, like Will, my friend. Yeah. So what else resonated or didn't resonate with you? Kevin?
Yeah, so I mean, I've done things like this in the past, and some of my long-standing clients made a huge difference. So we did like when I was at the Ottawa Citizen, they did an article on one of my clients, and they just so happened to be at the hockey game in the front row in the Sens one, so their picture was there. So I went, got that printed, bought a frame, put it in the frame, drove it to the client, and gave it to her. It wasn't even a big client. And that was like one client that stuck with me for a long time, and it led to other referrals. So it's just kind of, and it made me feel good because she was in tears when I handed it to her because it meant a lot to her. They're huge fans. And then Fensall, who we just signed, I've had them for like 8 or 9 years now. And he had a stroke, actually, invited me to his house to tell me. Everything's fine with him, obviously. Sorry to get a little heavy there. But he was a big musician fan. So I brought him a card, wrote a nice card, brought him a gift card to McQuaid's music place and gave that to him. So those are all just like little things that I found, like nothing compared to what they've done. But I mean, I wish I've done more, but they make you feel good. But the relationships you build off that and what it leads to is just, I mean, that's what we're all here for. We like seeing clients get results, but just going that extra step. And I've seen a lot of people here do that. There's a reason why we are able to retain clients. So I thought that was like one thing that really stuck out to me.
Sounds like a chapter from the book, like the extra 5% there, Kev.
That's awesome. I'm very curious, Kevin, like, are there any other examples of things that you did for clients, like those two that you mentioned, that you can think of?
Off the top of my head, I mean, I've done like a lot of little things. We're just sending them like handwritten thank yous and different things in the mail like that. But I definitely, this book kind of made me realize how important those things are, because I have gotten away from it. I've gotten what you call complacent. And it just kind of like reinvigorated me to kind of do that here. Like, all these clients are very important to us. They're trusting us, they're giving us their income, and they're putting their trust in our hands, and just going that extra step to make them feel like, you know, they're just part of the team here. Definitely something I want to start incorporating more.
I know one of our clients in the past had shared with me that he keeps a bottle of wine, a birthday card, a birthday bag with like a generic thing inside of it. And so what he'll do is, if he hears it's someone's birthday, he would go out to his car, grab the stuff that he would just keep there, and hand it to that person. And that blew my mind when he told me that. I'm like, that is like so clever and cool, because you basically have like a backup then ready to go, and you're making a great impression, and you're making somebody's day by doing that. And I completely forgot about it until just now when you were sharing like some of the stuff that you did. But that's like another example of unreasonable hospitality, and I think that's just really neat to just have a stack of birthday cards.
Yeah, and you know, I think everything you put out there, you get back. So it's like going through a Tim Hortons with a $10 bill and ordering a coffee, and then just saying, put the change towards the person behind you. Like, I'm never going to see that person, right? But doing like little things like that, I find they all come back to you tenfold, and it kind of puts a hop in your step to make you feel good. And people have done that to me, where I pulled up to the drive-thru, like, oh, person in front of you paid for your order. And I'm like, you know, like, how great is that? Then you just kind of, everyone pays it forward. So I think it's just good all around.
And you never know like what someone's day is like. And so like doing something small like that, not to sound like deep, but like to sound a bit deep, it's going to make somebody's day, especially if maybe they had a bad day or they're having like a bad week or something. You never know. And so you're going to be that happy, warm, fuzzy moment in their life. And I think that's important. Any other thoughts? We haven't heard from Khalil or Fernando.
Yeah, whenever I think of unreasonable hospitality, I actually think of my dad. So like one of the examples in the book was like the real estate agent just leaving like a bottle of wine or something like that. And whenever my dad sells a house, he does that, and he gives a gift basket as well, but he also takes the client out for dinner. So it's like a little bit more of like a celebratory, like personal thing, right? So they're having a conversation about their plans and their future and things like that. So I always just kind of like think of my dad when I read the book, or when I did read the book. And yeah, it just gives me something to kind of look up to and kind of try to emulate in anything that I do. Yeah.
For me, I have a very similar experience with my dad. I was working with him, like before working here, I worked with him plumbing for 2 years, and it was just him. So he had like a bunch of like these contractors that he would work with, and he always wanted to keep a good relationship with them. And he was trying to like put me on game and like kind of like teaching me what the book already taught me, but just in his own Spanish dad way. And what he would do is he would find out their favorite type. My dad loves beer and he has the gout, which is like, but he would always make it an emphasis to somehow find their favorite beer, the contractor, and we would constantly like he would always bring it, and just like mainly on Fridays we would go to the beer store, buy the beer if he knows he's going to see the contractor, and just give it to them. A lot of the times too, now that my dad has a lot more workers under him, he always buys like coffees and just buys them lunch, just kind of like general things to kind of show that he cares like for like his workers and stuff like that. But when I was working with him, it was just me and him, and I saw how he was trying to keep that relationship with contractors because they were providing him the work. So just seeing like the extra steps that he would do to keep them in good terms was and like we even like did free work for like contractors' parents, just to like always be on like good terms with them. So like there was like constantly so many times we would go do free work and my dad would be like, yeah, this is free work now, but like this guy's giving me like $100,000 contracts. And so like we kind of like, just bite the bullet, work on this house of it for his dad. And then we know this is going to like work out later. So I did learn a lot from my dad too, kind of similar to Khalil.
That's awesome. I love hearing these stories, and I guess kind of dive in a bit deeper. Like, are there any specific aspects of the book that you like, anybody, it can be anybody, it doesn't have to be Fernando or Khalil, but anybody that kind of really resonated with you or did the opposite?
I wrote down a quote from the book where it was saying, like, if you want them to be there for you when you need them, then you need to be there for them. And it made me think of like the CDs supporting CDs, but it's not just like for us, right? It's also for the client. Like when we need them, we need to be there for them as well. So it's a two-way street, right? So that was just something that resonated with me, just especially being on the CS side, having that communication and like the forefront of CD with them. Yeah, I just kind of like that quote.
Great, thank you. Any other thoughts, Roy or Carla, Matthias?
Yeah, I mean, this book just resonated with me altogether. I really like this book. I think this is my favorite out of all the books that we've read for book of the month or book of the quarter. I mean, it's about food. I love food. Love to, like dining in general and hospitality. So I found myself enjoying this book in a way of like learning how to spot the hospitality when I go to like restaurants and stuff. But at the same time, it had a lot of like managerial leadership, teamwork, systems, all spread out throughout. So like just consuming this was like a joy for me. And yeah, I think that's like overall. I think one thing that's specific is like it was really on the book where he said that service is black and white, hospitality is color. And I thought that was a really powerful analogy, and that like sure, we can certainly provide service, but at the end of the day, we really want to provide the hospitality. We want to make like give our customers color, not just the black and white. So I think that was really interesting analogy.
One line that stood out to me, just because I usually stress about my work enough, and I was always told we're not saving lives, we're not doctors, we're just doing advertising. And then they said we may not be saving lives, but we do have the ability to make their lives better. And it's like, because that's basically what we do. Like we have the control to take someone's money and give them like 10-fold back, 100-fold back. Like we can change their entire business. And we're not necessarily working with the PepsiCos. We're working with like Fensol, for example, is a family-owned business. They're all family, treat everyone like family. They hire really close to the company. So they're not like this huge, big, across North America, just a family-run business. And over the years, they've had their best 3 to 4 years out of their like 40+ year history with me. And that's kind of cool. So, I mean, everybody's in the position whenever we're doing performance, when we're doing creative content, anything is just to make such a huge impact. And you get to do that with every client every single day. So that kind of just stood out to me. So, we aren't saving lives, but, we can just make every single life better, because that's the whole point of them hiring us. And it's pretty cool to be in that position.
That's great. And Jackie, you have your hand raised?
I love that. Thank you, Kevin, for saying that, because we still have family businesses, right? And we support those. So that's a great way of thinking. I wanted to share, I worked, I was doing like media management for quite some time. And I got the chance to work with Four Seasons for a couple of years. And it changed my life, really. The way they would see everyone as their audience, let's say. So even me, like they would, every now and then, I would finish like the tour with the media. They would always like leave a little something on my bed, even if actually I was working for them. Or I was amazed by how they would give importance to certain markets. So for example, they will have the bridal, the brides, marriage season, right? So they would have all these events around that. They would have like, they noticed that they had like artists that would go for inspiration to their property. So they would create an atelier for them to go there and have like a space for them to get more inspired with a great view to the ocean. Or once they noticed that also many people would go there to writers. So they invited someone from one of this huge, like I think it was Discovery. They invited like someone on how to do a storytelling. So they were like really serving like different experiences for different markets. And that changed my way of thinking of hospitality, because it was truly amazing how they would identify their markets and they would create a very unique experience, a very one-on-one, and exclusive, of course, but it was truly an experience for everyone working with them. So I also love the hospitality business because of that, because it's really about positive surprises, right? People don't expect these details and the amount of attention to detail. So yeah.
Great. Thank you, Jackie. So let's see. What does Michael always say? Who shall I pick with my bony finger? We've not heard yet from Carla or Allison or Matthias. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what resonated you, or what insights you got, or even like what you plan to use, like what kind of stuff from the book you want to use moving forward at CDIO, like what lessons learned.
Something specific that I really liked was they mentioned being present with intention. And that's something that I try to do, like going into my meetings. I try to make sure that like I have some agenda notes there, something to contribute to show that like I've prepared for this time that I'm planning on investing with you as the client or as a fellow teammate and things like that. And I think that when we show up for each other like that and for clients like that, it just like, I don't know, it really, I appreciate it. I know other people appreciate it. And it's like, it really, really goes a long way to letting the client know, like, you've been thought of, this agenda is like meticulously curated for you. And like, I've collected all these little tidbits from emails that you've been sending me over the past few weeks, and here they are, let's discuss them. So I feel like that's one way that we can really show up with intention easily at work.
I love that. I really love that. Yeah, the client, like little touches like that can really, I think Jackie just said positive surprises. There are lots of negative surprises that just kind of like, it's a minefield what we do, you know, like we can sometimes trip up on a bit of a negative surprise, and the client feels that way at times. Turning that into something positive by bringing a little detail to a meeting to show them, as you said, that we've really spent a lot of time to meticulously go over their campaign and to present new ideas and to just give them something that they weren't expecting, something more. And sometimes you can feel that when you bring that to the table, when you bring that to the client, you can actually feel the delight and the surprise.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I absolutely love that. I think that's definitely an area where we can bring what we've learned from this book into our everyday work here at CDIO. Yeah, love it.
And it's like a low time, low cost investment too. Like it can be, because if we looked at this like from a big lens, it's like, oh my gosh, this means we might have to invest like 4 more hours per client or something like that. It's like, well, what about the decorating dens of the world? Like we don't have a ton of extra time, but maybe it's like Jackie found a really great clip for LMD that I'm going to share with them on Friday. Maybe I find a really great podcast that would be great for decorating den that I could share with her. And those like aren't huge, but it's a good way to inject delight. So I want to try to think outside the box for more of those ideas like that.
You know, Carla, when I was working at Post Media, I was serenading a client based in Peterborough that you probably know of, called Joanne's Place. They're on Lansdowne. Yeah. And I was having real trouble getting them over line. So you know what I did? I said to them, yeah, I'd like to come and work for you. And they said, wait, what do you mean? I said, oh yeah, I want to come and work for you. Is there a chance that say like Wednesday next week, I could just come over, like, you know, put a Joanne's Place uniform on, whatever, like work in the store, like stock the shelves. I don't care. I'll just do it like that. At least then I can get to meet your customers. I can get meet the people you work with, who work with you, and understand how the business really works, right? And your products. And then you do that. I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. So they were like, well, of course. So I showed up and did a shift at Joanne's Place. And it was bloody brilliant. And of course, we closed the deal. But then every time I went in to that place to do a report meeting, like all the guys in the warehouse at the side knew me because I'd been hanging out with them. All right. So yeah, it goes a long way. Like just putting yourself out there and going the extra mile really does. Love it.
For me, I gotta say it's really interesting to see and to hear all of you guys' kind of point of view. The book is very much a relationship, like how to foster relationships with clients, customers, that sort of thing. And while I was kind of thinking the same way as you guys while reading, I was also thinking about how we can kind of foster those relationships with our clients' customers through creative. And it's pretty amazing what we're able to do with copy and the imagery that we use in order to develop these relationships. And there are so many things that like the lessons that they tell you here, like empowering your team and doing all these things that can help kind of build a relationship. And we can do that through creative, and that is something that I want to continue to do here at CDIO. And yeah, it's not only the relationship with the client, but the relationship that we have with our clients' customers based on the work that we do creatively, which is pretty cool.
Something that I wrote down, I think from a little bit earlier on in the book, is how they wrote that focusing on hospitality can help make magic in a world that desperately needs more of it. And I thought that was just like a really beautiful sentiment, especially given like how the world is at the moment. So it's something that really resonated with me and something I want to bring into all aspects of my life, not just work. Just kind of being like recklessly kind, right? Yeah, I thought it was neat.
I love that. Recklessly kind.
Yeah.
I think that's a bumper sticker. Like,
well, it is now.
We're all just gonna pull up with cars that says like recklessly kind on it.
Exactly.
Any other lessons that anybody else has learned from the book that you want to apply moving forward?
I thought there was a message about work ethic that I really enjoyed. We're speaking about things that resonated with us. This one definitely resonated with me personally. So I'll read out the quote. Nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than successful people with unsuccessful people with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. And that was a quote that his dad gave him. And I think that's really powerful here. That makes me think of CDIO. Like a lot of us come from educated backgrounds and a lot of us are talented, right? It's there. But at the end of the day, persistence really makes things happen. You know, how willing are we to be persistent every single day and bring that to our work? And I just thought that was great. So I had to write that one down. And yeah, I was hoping to share it in this call.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. And it I think it was probably around the same, I feel like it's around the same chapter where like he talks about, there was like one of the guys, he's like, oh, like maybe not cut out for one of the positions. And he's like, you know what, but there's talent elsewhere. So he kind of like moves him in the proper area and he just let him like, boom, like he starts excelling, like exploding. And like, I think that that's just such a really good lesson to learn. Cause it's like, people are talented, but their talent can't show if they're not in the right area. And I think we've seen that here as well, like finding everybody, putting them in the right seats and making sure that where you're really like passionate and talented, like you get there and then woo, there you go.
In this proposal.
Totally.
And something else that he mentioned too was what we do a lot is like we'll analyze our mistakes, right? To great detail to figure out what we did wrong, how we do better. But he also mentions to like take time and analyze your successes, right? So it's like a lot of times we just breeze past that, like, yes, good job, guys. Like that was a great job. But it's like analyzing the success and like how we got there, what we did to get to that point, right? Is also important. So, you know, instilling that into our CD lifestyle too is, in my opinion, pretty key. So just wanted to share that one.
Thanks, Adam.
Any other lessons learned that anybody would like to share?
Yeah.
Right, well, if that's everything, I mean, Ileana, is there anything else? Are there any other slides here? Is there anything else you want to go over?
So we have one more slide left, and oops, I just pinned myself, I think. Yeah. We have one more slide left, and it's just what the next book of the quarter is. But I just wanted to make sure that if everybody had, like, they just had their opportunity to like share and discuss, sure. And I think it was great. I think it was a great conversation. And so if there's nothing else, let's reveal.
I think just to conclude this as well, I think that this book has done good as an organization, and based upon everybody's comments on this call and the lessons and the key takeaways that everybody has offered in this call really highlights that. And I think books like this are great for our culture here at CDIO. They help us to reflect upon where we've been. And they also help us to get excited about the future as well. And I think there are little elements of that book that everybody can relate to. And I certainly think it's one of the most impactful books that we've read here in quite a while. So.
Mm-hmm. So it's not controversial that I was like, this is like as good as Story Brand.
No, that's not controversial at all. That is, you would be right.
Great. Awesome. Thank you for the great conclusion and closing words, Michael. We now have the book of, it did like the nice little, this is the next book of the quarter, 100 Million Leads by Alex, Hormozi? I think that's how you say it. And it basically is going to help you, oh, my thing's in the way. It's going to basically teach you how to get strangers to want to buy your stuff. So take a screenshot of this or write it down or open up your Amazon or wherever you get books and just like, and I will send out reminders, of course, and I'll create the folder so you can put your book report in, and it will be done at the end of the quarter. So I want to confirm, Michael, that would be the end of January.
Yes, I believe it will be.
Okay, cool. Because I'm never sure if it's like the beginning of January, end of January, but end of January makes sense. So this will be due the end of January. Date will be confirmed. I'll put that in the Book of the Quarter channel.
This will be really handy for me because I've got loads of stuff that I might want to sell. So
it's true. You want to sell. I'm accidentally pinned. I did not mean to be pinned. Great. Well, thank you everybody for reading the book, submitting your book reports, and participating in the great discussion. And I'm going to send out a poll after this just to see like thoughts on this discussion versus like a breakout room discussion, and I'll make it anonymous. So well, I'll do my best. I'll try and make it anonymous. I think it's going to be anonymous. So looking for the feedback on that, and I'm sure I'll see you guys around later.
Thanks, Ileana. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Cool.
Have a
Thanks.
good one.
Bye.
See you.